I found out I was pregnant with TK end of 2018. Yes, it was December after we traveled up country for Christmas. I suspected, but decided to wait because throughout the year I'd, really wanted to get pregnant, and many times it was just bloopers. So I waited. When we came back from up country is when I tested and it was positive. So, of course, it's a child we had been waiting for, and it was exciting. Just the first time, being a first time mother, and I had a smooth pregnancy. I can't say that there was any challenge. The only thing in the first trimester, I think I was craving a lot of junk, but after that, I ate mostly a lot of traditional traditional veggies, ugali. Those are the kind of meals that I liked. I also didn't have such a huge appetite like I had anticipated. I ate normally, in fact, possibly less than I was eating previously, but there was also the supplements that you're given by the obstetrician. So when the 9 months, when I was due, so I waited for, as a first time mother, you have this mental picture of what I will break and everything, but that didn't happen. And we went for a check-in with my doctor. He said, let's just wait, go home, wait for, I think it was 3 days. If, the contraction doesn't start coming, just come, we induce. So by the time we were going, so after 3 days, still nothing. By the time we were going to hospital, I think I was almost 40 weeks, if I'm not wrong. We went in. I was admitted at around, because I remember we saw the doctor, then had lunch. So I was admitted about 3 p.m. So at 3 p.m., what happened is they gave me the first insertion. So the period between insertions was 6 hours. Yes. So that was a Wednesday, 3 p.m. The first insertion was put in. And after those few hours, I had barely dilated. They put the second one. So now this is during the night, around 8 p.m. Then again, if you count 8 plus 6, that would be 2 a.m. That's the third insertion. By that time, I think I was only 2 centimeters. So still, that didn't happen. So basically, this continued. Eventually, I was put on a drip, and the contractions started slowly, but they increased. It still took a while because by the time I was giving birth to TK, it was the morning of Friday. I gave birth around 12:15 thereabout. So that means the labor was close to 48 hours plus. Of course, we were elated. We were happy. I had a vaginal delivery, and so I didn't have to be induced. Of course, I really wanted it to be, I know there's a better word term to use, a normal delivery. And I had instructed my doctor, unless there was an emergency, let's try and do it the natural way. There was a point, I'll just go back a bit. There was a point, because it was taking too long. I remember because I had my sisters around me, 2 of my sisters, and one of my aunts came to visit as well. And she was really worried that it's taking too long, to the point where her and I think one of my sisters were stressing me about it. I literally chased them from the doctor. I just told, from the hospital, because I told them, I have a plan with my doctor. None of you are doctors. My aunt came in and said, oh, I've called a doctor from the States or something, and they said you should just go for CS. And I really wanted to avoid that because, I don't know, in my mind, I felt like if it wasn't necessary, why should I go through all that? And I didn't know better. And I don't even know that it was wrong that I waited. But we waited. The child's heartbeat was okay. Nothing was out of pocket. It was only a point where my pressure went high because I had too many people around me, but the nurse chased them. So in all appearances, everything was fine. We went home, and the 9 months, 3 months of probation, not probation, 3 months of staying home, of the maternity leave, and then eventually I did go back to work. Honestly, for me, maternity leave was a blur. At that point, you're so tired, you're just breastfeeding, you're eating, you're sleeping, you're barely sleeping. But I went back to work. So I had a high pressure job at the time, now adjusting to pumping and just the normal routine that mothers go through. But so basically my pregnancy and it was the typical journey that most mothers go through. With what I know now, when I look back, I remember there was a time when I went back to work and I came home, I used to try and really fight for my child's attention. And I asked my mom, it's so weird when I'm home, I try to get her attention. She's not looking at me. She's not, she didn't seem to want me. And I used to feel some type of way because she was okay with the nanny. So I used to feel guilty. And what my mom told me at the time is, you were like that when you were a baby. You were least bothered with people, but you fed well, which Tendai also fed well. She used to eat well. There was nothing that was strange with that regard. But that's something that used to hurt. I used to feel hurt that she's not looking at me. She doesn't want to engage with me. She seemed to be lost in her own thoughts. And I just chalked it up to, I've gone back to work. There's that distance, so there's we're not as close as if I was home 24/7. And knowing what I know now, things like eye contact are very important, and we lost it at a point. There's a time I was looking back at her videos, and she was giving me eye contact. So I can't tell where exactly it stopped, but I do remember that I noticed it. So when Tendai was about 6 months, it was because I gave birth to her August of 2019, and then the COVID hit 2020, at least in Kenya is when it started becoming rampant. And so what we did, just like everyone, you do the measures, no guests, closing everything in. So she had hit all her milestones. She was crawling, walking. She walked at 9 months, I think, and everything seemed okay. But by the time she was almost 2, she hadn't started talking, no babbling, no nothing. So we felt it was time. And at that time, COVID hadn't subsided, but things were opening up. Kids were now going back to school. So where I stay, there are many daycare centers. So we visited a few and picked one and took her to school. So because we felt that she needed to mingle with other kids, maybe she would open up. So when she was there for about a month or 2, or a month and a half, and the daycare owner, the teacher, called me and said, you should come, we have a discussion, because we had agreed, let her come in, and then she will do a review of where she's at, what challenges she may have, and what we can do to help her be able to engage more, because she never used to really engage with other kids as well. So she called us, we went. I remember it was a Saturday, and there were toys put there, and she just went straight to the toys, and we were talking to the teacher. And she said, by all standards, Tendai is fine. She's never cried coming to school and everything. However, I noticed a few things that a bit worrying from our standpoint of an early childhood teacher. Number one, when you talk to her, she doesn't give you eye contact. And I said, oh yeah, that's something that she does. Maybe she's not interested. And she said, no, that is actually something to worry about. The second thing is she was not engaging with the other kids. She preferred being by herself. And if something annoyed her, she would have a meltdown. So it was something that we had noticed, but we had chalked it up to she's an only child and no other children, so maybe she's a bit spoiled. So she said, she gave us a story of her son who is dyslexic, now a grown up, and how long it took her to find out. So, but right now there are ways you can have your child assessed to find out if they're okay or if there could be a learning challenge or a challenge of any kind, so that you can mitigate it early. Of course, when you're told that, I feel a bit of panic. I felt a bit of panic. I can't speak for my husband, but we decided, of course, we want to go have her assessed. So we went to the local Gertrude, I think it was Gertrude's Kitengela. She had a cold. We also told the doctor about what we had been advised, and he wrote not a recommendation of sort to the main hospital for us to be able to book. And we booked a session with a neurologist, and we went after. It wasn't easy to get an appointment immediately, but I think we went after 2 weeks. So when we went, we had a series of tests. The neurologist asked us a couple of questions. We were done for an auditory test. So an auditory test is to find out if she can hear well, because there are times you call her and she doesn't respond, she doesn't turn. So they have to check if perhaps the issue is her hearing, and the auditory tests were fine. Then after that, we were referred to a specialist now in the autism space. We went and met her, and she asked us a couple of questions. She observed TK, and after less than, I think, 10 to 15 minutes, she tells us, okay, so now your child has autism. And I think for her, it's called virtual autism. And this is because you expose her to, as you've told me, because she asked us a series of questions of, how her home life is and everything. You expose her to a lot of TV, which played a part in, blocking. So because when you watch TV, it's not really an engaging kind of thing. It's just the child receiving information from the screen. So it sort of led to, I don't know what part of the brain that wasn't being engaged. So now gave Tendai autistic symptoms. So that's what they said virtual autism is. And that's how we found out. My first feeling was panic. So when I panic, if you don't know me, you wouldn't really know, because my body, I'm just calm, but inside I was panicking. And I don't know, it's a human response, but I immediately went to, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? And I started thinking through all the things. It got to a point where I wasn't hearing what the doctor was saying anymore. And I was going through a Rolodex in my mind, of the things I did wrong up to that point. I got pregnant, and throughout my pregnancy, trying to figure out what I did or what I ate or how I lived my life before. I just went into self, not deprecation, but blame. And there was a point where my partner asked if he asked the question. I thought about it, but he outrightly asked it, like if it's If it was caused by, it could be caused by genes or something someone did. And at that point, it shouted even louder in my mind. Of course, now he also thinks you're the problem. And I still, after that question, I didn't really hear what the doctor said. I left that room knowing that it was my fault, that TK had autism. And up to last year, I didn't realize that I had still been in that mental space. So that's how I felt. We were advised on what to do next. So what to do next was to go and see someone called an occupational therapist who would help her engross and fine motor skills. I can now clearly articulate that, but at the time, we were just filling forms, moving on to the next, booking appointments. It was more of, I felt like just a zombie moving through life, because, just following what we were told to do, but not really understanding why we were doing it. I was stuck in that sense of what could I have done? Why is this happening? Why me? Why my child? I mean, does that mean she'll never speak? It was a lot. And typically when I'm stressed, I tend to just shut down. My body is, moving and I'm doing things, but there's just a place where I think my brain, I'm learning that my brain just, because of the pain and angst I feel, it shuts off something. I become numb. And that was it. So I was just operating like a robot with that regard. The challenges I had when we found out about autism is, number one, because I had that mental shutdown. Even when we were going and doing therapies, the doctors used to the occupational therapist would give recommendations, and I'd come home and try and tell the nanny to do them, but I wasn't. Now I'm realizing that I had to also be part of it, but I was just instructing and trying to remove myself from the situation. Because I felt helpless, I would try something, and when it's difficult, I give up. So that's one challenge I had with myself. Another thing is, because of that and trying to remove myself from the situation, I was so busy at work. I was busy going for other engagements outside the home. So anything that would keep me from the house, I was very ready and willing to do. Go out with friends, be the one to plan work events. I was just busy. I tried to keep myself busy, I think, because I was running away from that feeling I felt when we were told about TK. So the challenge I had after the diagnosis with regards to my marriage is, I felt like my husband wasn't accepting the reality. At the time, for me, the reality was, this is a terrible thing. It's hard. It's going to be hard moving on. So we need to accept that and accept the situation. Because he always used to say, things will be okay. Don't stress, babe. Then I will be fine. And I was still in that state of panic. I realize now that I was in a state of panic because we were told 2022, for 3 years. And so in my mind, I thought he was delusional. He had not accepted. And I'm the one who had accepted. So I felt like he's not supporting me. He's not accepting that our child is just in this horrible state. We need to now figure out how to live with this child who perhaps may not amount to much. And yeah, of course, it put a strain in the marriage. We never sought help. We were both in our own silos of emotions. We never really talked about how we feel about the situation. We used to dance around it. And it affected our relationship. But the good thing is we still did things to support our child. We'd go for therapies together. There was never a time that I went to take Tendai for therapy by myself, or had to deal with certain things by myself, maybe at home. But with regards to going to the OT, as an occupational therapist, he was always there. And finally, with friends, that one I only knew when I shared it openly on social media that I wasn't talking about Tendai. So I was talking about my child, but I wasn't talking about autism. What I was saying is she's autistic and limited that, because I didn't want to talk too much about it. I didn't want questions. I didn't want judgments. I just didn't want anyone to say anything that would set me off. Or so for those who knew, now that I look back, probably just felt like that's not a place you touch, so we'll leave it alone. And then there are others who apparently didn't know, people who've been in my life for so long. I don't know how I managed to do that, because I thought I was okay. I thought I was always talking about my child, and to the extent there's someone who, if they didn't see photos of my kid on social media, wouldn't have ever known I had a child. And that really right now makes me feel sad, because anyway, I didn't know that I was battling I think depression. Yes, depression is a word I would call it. I didn't know. I think I was I don't know if there's something like a high functioning depressant, maybe. And in terms of now neighbors, I remember there's a time I was outside with TK, and because she still had her diapers. To date, we are now almost getting into potty training. Then there's a neighbor who asked, why does this one still have a diaper at her big age? And what I wanted to say in my mind was so bad. I just looked at her, I didn't say anything, but there was another neighbor, my husband's friend, who was there. He just looked at me and saw my face and answered. The lady said, and just said, she's autistic. I don't even know what he said, but he talked to that lady. All I did was just look at her, and then I took Tendai and went home. So yeah, it was not easy. It was not easy, dealing with the whole situation with regards to my relationships and the people around me. The other challenges we had was not understanding meltdowns, especially. Meltdowns were really terrible, because they can take everything away from you. Your child is screaming, yelling. At the time, earlier on, she used to self-harm, like she'd go on the floor and start banging her head or on the wall. You don't know what to do. And then it progressed later to, harming me, but not like, it's biting, scratching, pinching, and that used to drain me a lot. And because of those meltdowns, once she calmed down after hours, the thing I just wanted to do was leave the house. I'd just run away. So what I'd do, I'd go look for a drink, hang out, and come back home, whatever time. That was a downward spiral for me. I didn't realize it. It had become, up to last year, it was getting worse and worse. Yeah, there's also a point where, you can't, I realize now that I hadn't also accepted, because you talk to someone and they say, but TK is fine. I mean, apart from not talking, I don't see anything wrong with her. So you you try to think maybe they misdiagnosed, maybe there was a mistake. There's no way that our child, knowing me and my husband, our personalities combined, we'd have an autistic kid. And to a point where there was a time it was suggested to us. In the African context, most times when we can't explain something, we go to it's a spiritual situation. So then the community where both my husband and I were kisses, and witchcraft is rampant. And there was a point it was suggested to us that someone threw a spirit at our child or something like that. And I was so sure that was true. But now when I look back, I realize I was just desperate for anything other than she's autistic. I was so sure that was true. The only thing positive that came from that situation, after months of, I think 2 or 3 months of being that days, someone has done this to my daughter. And when someone tells you that, because it's someone else who's done it, your mind goes wild. Who would want to hurt my child? You start going through the people in your life, your family. And then now I barely know my husband's relatives. Maybe it could be on their side, but I was convinced it was from my side somehow. So I still went back to it's my fault. It must be someone I hurt. It must be someone who has a problem with me. So that's also another thing that was added to the stress. But the good thing that came from there now is got to a point where I didn't know what else to do. I just leaned on my higher power, who I refer to as God, and I started praying. I didn't know what I was praying about, but I just started praying. So the journey of surrender started there. I didn't know it at the time, but that's where it started. I guess it forced me to really, because I had a lot of time to sit and think through things, and I couldn't ignore the reality of my life anymore. Early on, after leaving work, my drinking went up. I started drinking more, going out more, trying to run away because I had all the time. So I was always home. So I'm just facing this issue that I've been blocking for a long time. And then at the same time, I had met this group of women who became now like family to me. So we would meet for Bible study. I wasn't consistent. I'd go, sometimes I don't go, but it was a space where I could share my feelings and the things that I was facing in my life openly. There was no judgment, and it was very uncomfortable for me at the time. I know maybe now they know, but then they thought I was very open, and I was. But every time I left, I used to feel, why did I say that? Now I've exposed myself. And it would make me not go back for sessions, maybe 2 weeks or 3 weeks. And I was running away, in essence. There's a Sunday, I went to church. And that day, TK really had a meltdown. She was disruptive in class. I think she beat her kid's nose. And the teacher was agitated and was wondering why is she acting like that. So I decided to just leave, and I couldn't help it. I just started crying because I was feeling terrible. Like, my child can't sit it. I can't even come to church. Like, the one place where I thought I could just come and maybe hopefully she'll be calm, I couldn't. And I started crying as I was trying to put our things together, and I left the room. But there was another teacher, a female, and she insisted. She said, no, let me just take her in. I said, no, you don't know, she's autistic. And I was just telling her all the reasons why she shouldn't take her. She said, I know, I understand. Just go take a moment. And she took it, and I just went to the, not the cafeteria. There's a place where people can hang out and eat meals. And I cried, and I cried. And after I calmed down, I went and took Tendai from the class. So the teacher who had earlier been irritated, I went and apologized. And I said, I'm sorry that, she was disruptive. She's autistic, and sometimes she can get agitated. And he felt really bad for how he had acted, and he apologized. He's like, I'm so sorry. You don't even have to apologize. I can't believe I made you feel like that. And he asked me if he can take my number. I said sure, but I didn't. After that, I left. I didn't go back to church for a while. But this guy kept once in a while texting me, how are you guys? How is Tendai doing? I'm praying for you. Please come to church. Encouraging me. I didn't go to church still for a while. Same time, still trying to meeting with my DG. They're also trying to get me to open up. And I think another instance where I felt heaviness, we had a hangout earlier in the year, and we went to one of the ladies' homes. And of course, that time Tana used to be all over the place. She's someone who would come and whatever was on the table, she would, hit it. And I just felt uncomfortable. I couldn't stay for long. So I wanted to leave, but they asked me not to leave. So what I did is I asked my husband to come pick TK. So he came, and when I was taking her down the stairs and going to him, I just started bawling out, crying, and I was like, will our child ever have friends? How will her life ever look like? And I really didn't want to go back inside, but he just told me, let me take her. You need the break. Just go back and hang out with your friends. And I went back. I don't remember how the rest of the hangout went, but I think I was quiet. I'm not wrong. But so there are those instances where there were people around me who were trying to, love on me and trying to break that shell. I hadn't realized that. In September, I don't know, I decided to just be taking tonight to church. However I felt. However, I think it was the constant messaging from the Sunday school teacher and this group of women who are now my close friends. I said, take her to church. I said, at the very least, that's one thing my mom did for me. And, feeling that emptiness and that empty void. And then also not forgetting how when I'd been told, my child had been, someone had thrown a spirit at her, I had started the prayer life. I'd started praying, whether I believed it or not, I was just praying, at least constantly. So probably, I think what happened then was I'd started to surrender slowly, but I'd started to and surrendering, I mean, it was getting to a point where I can't control this anymore. I don't have the strength to do it anymore. I think I just got tired. And yeah, so that September, I started taking her to church constantly, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy because she would still have meltdowns, but I didn't stop going. Then in October, I decided to also change my life. I decided to stop drinking, and I fully submitted I started the process of fully submitting to God and reading the Word, and because I started finding that it's a place that was giving me peace. When I say I stopped drinking alcohol, because I realized it was an escape from the realities of my life. It was also not helping in regards to my relationship, and it was also a point of, it was affecting as well my my ability to, I wasn't working actively, but it was just affecting a lot of areas in my life. So I just felt that it didn't serve me anymore. And I decided to stop drinking. This was in October, towards the end of October. At some point in November was just a random morning. Part of the spiritual journey I've been on is I've been following a lot of Christian content from 2023 to 2024. A couple that I really like because they are creatives, they are poets, and they still talk about God's word is the Perrys. And so I used to watch most of their episodes like clockwork. When a new episode pops up, I watch it. I felt like I understood. What I like about Jackie Hill Perry especially is she teaches the word. She doesn't sugarcoat it. You know, nowadays how Christianity has become this softness, just do the way you pick what you choose. She's real and raw. And a lot of the stuff that she was saying really convicted me. On top of it is she's so unconventional. She's someone who, sorry, I'm digressing, but I really admire her. She's someone who used to be a lesbian. She stopped. She has tattoos. The way she dresses is unconventional. So I think it made me feel like if this person is someone who is convicted and God loves and she's, an authority in that space, then perhaps I'm also worthy. I think that's how I felt like I resonated with her. And her husband as well. Her husband is also a poet and they really know the Bible well. Secondly, also in my Bible study group, we call them discipleship group, we had started reading through the Bible from last year, January, and things were just clicking. I'm learning now that the Bible is more of just a guide to life. And it was a combination of many things. But now, going back to a moment where it was very monumental for me, I had been seeing episodes, but there was this particular one that kept popping up of a guest that they were having, Megan Ashley, and the caption was, dealing with autism and something. All I could see was the autism part. So I always used to skip that episode. I never used to watch it. But there's a morning, my typical morning routine would be to wake up, work out, then I was doing some digital course online. But there's a day I think it was cold, it was raining, I didn't feel like waking up, I was feeling down. And I said, I might as well watch this episode. I've been avoiding it for a while, let me watch it. And when I watched it, everything Megan Ashley was saying really resonated with me. But more so when she said, with regards to autism, she said that the society doesn't do enough to include those in the autism spectrum, and most especially the church. Then she said she went for a service once in some church. I don't know if it was the church she used to worship in. The pastor asked about, who has autistic kids, stand up, we pray for you. And while he was praying, he proceeded to start casting demons, saying that may the demons be cast out, along those lines. And she said she was really angry. I think she walked away. She left the church. And that story really, 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 really touched me to the core because of what I said earlier. Being, told that our child had been thrown a spirit. And I was angry when I was watching this, and I'm like, that's America's. It's the States. Like, they also have this backward thinking. So what hope do we have in Africa where it's the norm? When something is off, instead of looking for the reason, we say it's witchcraft. But somehow towards the end of that video, I just started asking myself, a question just kept lingering. I was getting angry at people, how people are so ignorant, how people say, thinking back to all the crass comments or questions people have asked over the years. But by the end of the video, the question that kept lingering is, how will they know? How will they know if you don't tell them? And I don't know, just like a light bulb moment just hit me. I need to I need to do something. I didn't know what, but the reality hit me that if I didn't have an autistic child, I wouldn't know much about autism. I'd never heard of it. Like the first time I heard of it is my colleague used to tell me about her cousin who was an autistic child. And I remember thinking, yo, I wouldn't want that. I've just remembered that now. But I didn't also know what autism was. And the truth is, if I didn't have an autistic child, it wouldn't be in my radar. It's not something that I would actively look for or try to understand. And I felt compelled to just do a video, and that's not something I'd ever done, and post on TikTok. And while I was doing that video is when I came to the realization I had never accepted my child, in the sense that I was still, so the issue I was having is I was still stuck on this line of thought of the life we should have had. The life we should have had as a family, as two brilliant people who are sort of doing well in our lives, and our child should have at least, my husband is really brilliant and smart. I'm also smart, I believe. And so I thought we'd be this super family. I was still stuck on that, and I had not accepted what was. And it doesn't mean that we wouldn't be any of those things. It would just look different. It wouldn't be exactly how I thought of it. And honestly, I was realizing as I was doing the video. And that's where the beginning of acceptance started. And I decided to now research more, do more in terms of learning about autism. I decided to sign up for an autism certification, which I did. I'm starting those classes in around May. And yes, it's led me, so a series of things have happened, but it's led me to this journey. So it's led me to this journey to fight for inclusivity for people in the spectrum. Right now, I feel that despite this thing that looked insurmountable, life just happens. It doesn't mean that you're bad or you did anything wrong. There are things that just happen in life, and having an autistic child isn't the end of the world. It's just she's a child like any other. Secondly, I have gone through a lot of challenging things in my life from when I was a kid, and I had already been built for this, actually. The thing about life is suffering will happen, challenges will come. The difference between those who make it and those who don't is how you look at things, the perspective you have, understanding that you can't control everything in life. And I've come into acceptance, and it's still a journey. I can say I'm still a baby in this process. And so when I decided to do something and join the inclusivity, being part of the inclusivity championing for people like my children, I felt unqualified. Sometimes I still do. But I'm going through a leadership bootcamp right now that's equipping me in that space. I'm going to join the autism certification course, and I decided to just start it. It's something I'd planned to do in 2026 when I'm equipped, but you're never ready. So with what I have, with the experience I have, I hope to help the mother who right now has just gotten the diagnosis, the child who right now is maligned or being teased in school because they're different, the brother or sister or friend who doesn't know how to help the person they love who's in this journey, who's going through this. if I can just bring hope to even one person in a day or in a month, I think, I believe that I'll have, fulfill my purpose. And this is my life right now. I'm afraid yet excited, because I know while there are many of us who have started, there are many organizations that are doing this, we need more resources, we need more people, we need more schools that are inclusive, we need more centers like Kenya Institute of Special Education. But most of all, we need people to be well informed, well educated about it, so that you know how to live with your neighbor, how to help your sibling, how to help your friend, and for those who are actually going through it, how they can navigate this tough journey. One other thing that I failed to mention in the beginning is, if you've just been told about this diagnosis, please go seek help therapy as parents. That is one thing I wish we were told, but I wish we did. It wouldn't have made the thing change, the situation change, but it would have been probably easier to deal with the feelings that come with it, especially the feeling of hopelessness, of feeling like you've made a mistake, it's all your fault, feeling like everyone around you hates you or will hate your child, worrying what will happen to your child, if you die. Like, it just comes with a lot. And yeah, I hope that I bring some solace to someone. Thank you.